need for a non-public?
We do under 91A:3, number 2, Roman number 2, A and C.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda, minutes of February 6th. Does any Board of Selectmen have any changes to those minutes? Hearing none, can I have a motion to accept them as written?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I am now going to start the public hearings. The first one, I'll read the notice. It says the Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, February 20th, 2019 at 6:35 p.m. at the Great Hall Town Hall, 84 South Main Street, Wolfeboro, New Hampshire, pursuant to RSA 284:51IB, Keno, regarding the following 2019 warrant article. Shall we allow the operation of Keno games within the town of Wolfeboro? It was posted in the Granite State News on February 7th, the Union Leader on the 12th. It was posted at the Town Hall, the library, and on our website. Is there anybody here who would like to speak to this public hearing on Keno? Okay. This is a little, I've got somebody coming up, but this is a kind of an interesting time frame. We did receive a letter from the New Hampshire Lottery realizing that we're having this public hearing even though we have already set the 2019 warrant because we're SB2 town.
So I am Mary Murphy. I come from Alton Bay, New Hampshire. I own a restaurant, JP China. I was on the board of directors for the Wolfeboro Chamber of Commerce. I absolutely love this community and the surrounding community. So I'm here as a representative of someone that has Keno. With that being said, I very quickly will teach you how to play Keno so you understand what Keno is so that you can actually make a very thorough decision on this. It's pretty simple. It's kind of a mixture of Keno, bingo and Powerball. It's done every 5 minutes. The bet goes for $1. We don't have people jonesing and chomping at the bit to play Keno. Keno has been a wonderful thing for my business. The nice part about Alton is that it got approved. You can pick and choose if you want it or if you don't. What it has done for me, I cannot explain because it has increased my business. It has put money in people's pocket for a $1 bet that they turn around and spend in the community. There is a lot of positive things to Keno. I think the biggest problem with people not understanding it is they don't know how to play it. So I'd like to be able to, if I could, please, I made 5 copies for you all to see so you would understand how to play the game so that you would have knowledge on what it is so that you can actually make a decision on it, okay?
The decision is going to go out to the voters. We've already placed it on. And is that okay with the board members?
Do you want to learn? If you want to learn, it'd take me 2 minutes.
I just needed the agreement of the board, so come on.
Thank you, Linda. I appreciate that. This is the Keno ticket. I made them really large.
Good.
Thank you.
I multiplied it by 150.
You spend it at your store?
And this is the payout, how it goes. On a $1 bet. Just a $1 wager. It's kind of like buying a scratch ticket. You play the $1 bet. You play 3 spots. Look at the 3 spot. You play $1 bet. All your 3 numbers come in. Win $30. So in 2017 to 2018, I just did the same numbers from April to February. I did $15,000. The lottery, I owed them $12,000 of it, so my profit was very minimal. This year, from the same time frame, from April to February, this is all public record, I did $53,000 in sales. $42,500 went to the lottery, and the rest of that was profit and commission from us selling. We've given away over $30,000 in cash, all in $500, $100, $2, $10, $13 increments. We had one person win as much as $2,300. It's just one of those things that suddenly her oil bill was paid. She had a dollar bet. It was just one of those things that happens. I also have to say, though, my business has increased. There is not all these venues here in Wolfeboro that it will fit, and they have the choice to say yes or no. All I'm saying is that there are some venues here in Wolfeboro that have pinball games and pool tables, and it would be perfect for them. So in my opinion, if you vote it in, each business has the right to choose. So at least give the opportunity to those people who want it to have the right to choose. With that being said, people win money. What do they do with it? They turn around, they walk out the door, they spend the money. Where does it go? Most of the time right back into the community. And then also with the economic part with the schools, it has been very beneficial. I was the only person with Keno up until last month when the American Legion took it on, after me really trying to convince them that would benefit their club. And I've talked to a lot of owners here in Wolfeboro. I think that it would be a crying shame if it didn't pass, just so that people have the right to say yes or no to their own business. So not so much for the town saying no, but I think that if you open the gate and give them a green light, at least they can say yes or no. And I think that's probably the fairest part of all of this, to see towns getting shut down with no choice because people don't understand how easy this game is to play and that it's not this flapjack thing or it doesn't turn into chaotic gambling. It's bingo, Powerball for $1. Thank you.
Thank you for coming and giving us that information. Anybody else in the audience who'd like to say anything? I'll just take anybody. I'll take care of that. You need to state your name for the record.
My name is Chris Algren. I'm a local business owner that may or may not have pool tables and pinball machines in it. I'm here to, speak for putting it on the ballot, which you did. Obviously, when it comes to gambling, there's folks out there who don't like it. They're just against it. This, as Mary articulated, is, a pretty low form of gambling. It's a little more interactive because you get to watch this ball shake up on the screen and then it pops up some numbers and, you select some numbers. But, it's certainly no more addictive than scratch tickets. They have $30 scratch tickets now. And, if you're coy enough, you can bet more than $1 per game, but the point that I think I'm trying to make is that the New Hampshire Lottery now has the scratch tickets online. You can go online and buy scratch tickets and scratch them online. I mean, there's so many avenues now that people can do this. I mean, this is like right from their home that they can do this now online. For those who are have some fears about people, doing gambling a little too much, this does require cash. Like, people can't come up to me and use the machine itself VINs it. It has a kiosk that VINs all the numbers so the state can basically keep track of things a little more seamlessly. But it does not allow you to use a credit card. You must use cash to do this. So people can't, run up their credit card bills by playing this. So that's a benefit. And I think that seems like a fun thing. It seems like something that people can do and have a good time with it. You know, I worry personally, as Mary stated, you know, when so much money goes back to the state, you know, they're spending $20 on that instead of $20 they could spend at my business. So I wonder myself sometimes. So hopefully, you know, it's going to generate more traffic and people will come. Another, I think, great reason for people to support it is that it's available in Alton and it's available in Ossipee. So the people from Wolfeboro who want to do it, they're going to go away from our businesses in town if that's what they want to do. Also, as Mary alluded to, the benefits, I think I talked to you last time about the breakdown, but the money that's brought in is basically used to help fund the full day daycare. That was part of the...
Daycare or kindergarten?
I apologize. You are correct. Yeah, it helps to fund the full day kindergarten. So it does have value for the money that is spent. Even you know, a lot of that money is coming directly back to our community. It's not just going to the lottery and they're pocketing it. I think it seems like for some reason it's about 65% of the revenue they generate goes directly into that, and then there's like 20% goes in administrative, and then 5% goes to, I think, for for addictive gambling. You know, they got it broken down to kind of hit all those points, so I guess that's all I have to say. If there's any questions, maybe from the selectmen, I'll try to answer them. They wonder why, not why.
Well, thank you for
Thank you very much.
giving us that input. Is there anybody in the audience who would like either to speak in favor of or against? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. It is on the 2019 ballot, and you'll have an opportunity to vote for it then. Okay. Move on. So I'm going to close, that public hearing is closed. I'm going to open the next public hearing. Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, February 20th, 2019 at 6:30 p.m. at the Great Hall Town Hall, 84 South Main Street, Wolfeboro, New Hampshire, regarding the conditional acceptance of an approval to construct a private sewer line extension approximately 1,100 feet in length from Greenleaf to Luando Lane. This sewer line is proposed for the construction between March and May of 2019, with a final acceptance to occur 1 year after completion upon satisfying all conditions. This was posted, it was noticed in the Union Leader February 10th, noticed in the Granite State News February 14th. It was posted on the Wolfeboro Town Office Board. It was posted at the Public Library and the town website on February 7th, 2019. Do I have anybody in the audience who'd like to speak to this?
Dave Ford, Director of Water Sewer Department. I think I just start off because I have been working with Mr. Conrad for over a year. He's been thinking about this, and we went back and forth how we could do something that would not only benefit the people on Clark Road, but basically benefit all the town by putting in an extension, a low-pressure sewer. And the way we did it is how we did Sewell Road. I think you remember about, it might have been 5-6 years ago now with Mr. Southern. We extended the sewer a little further because he had a very serious problem, and that was funded privately. It went in and he was connected. We had a little issues. We got them all worked out. About a year later, we accepted it, and now other people are tying in, and we are getting the connection fees for those. So with very little problems. This is a low pressure sewer. The design is something that we have throughout town in many different areas in town. So the engineer, Norway Plains, is preparing the detailed plans, and it'll get approved by the state and the town. So I am supportive of it, and I think we have Attorney Walker here can explain, or we can just take questions. I'm not sure how much the board wants to get into a big presentation, or what do you think, Linda?
I need to open it up, but since it's a public hearing, you've made your comments, I have to open it up so anybody else in the audience can, and then we can close the public hearing, and if the board has questions, can speak to you. Is there anybody else in the audience who would like to speak to this public hearing?
Good save right off the bat, huh?
Yeah.
My name's Randy Walker. I work for Walker & Varney here in Wolfeboro, and I'm representing Bob and Helen Conrad, Rocky Claiborne, and Chris Peterson, which are the last 3 property owners on Clark Road on the lake side. As we represented at the last hearing, their goal is to extend the line from its intersection with Greenleaf Drive on Clark Road about 1,100 feet down Clark Road to the end of it. All 3 of these property owners have their house under construction. They all have septic design, so they can put in their own independent septic system, and they will if we can't get approval. But their strong preference would be to extend this line down at their sole cost and expense and then tie into it. There's been a lot of discussion, as Dave mentioned, with the department heads and town planner. The town's been extremely helpful, receptive, and is like all projects, it evolves a little bit. As people get more input, you make some adjustments, so this project has evolved a little bit, but the concept hasn't changed from the inception. You have in your packets a memorandum from Matt Sullivan, the town planner, that suggested if you would to conditionally approve this 12 conditions, and I'd just like to run through those because I think it's just a good summary of what the project is. Number 1, he says all costs of design and construction should be paid for by the 3 property owners. That's absolutely the case. The estimated cost is about $150,000 to $200,000, and they plan on paying 100% of that. The only thing they ask in return is that they not have to pay the sewer hookup fee. They're asking to be exempted from that. Number 2, that the design and construction will be to specifications approved by the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, and to get a permit, they're absolutely willing to do that. Randy Tetro from Norway Plain Survey, who lives on Clark Road, his firm was hired to do the design and have done it and will submit it. Number 3, that the design and construction specifications shall be approved by the Sewer and Public Works Departments and any necessary permits obtained. Again, we need to have Dave Ford and the other department heads sign off on this to make sure that it's compliant with whatever requirements you may have. 4, the design should ensure that it has adequate capacity, not just for these 3 people, but anyone else that may tie in on Clark Road or the Lawando Lane if they decide to tie in at the future. So it'll be overbuilt for the 3 people that are going to tie in so that others can tie in without having to dig it up a second time. Number 5, favorable progress inspections will be made. This project should take just a couple of weeks to put in. They're happy to do that. Number 6, upon completion of construction, they are very willing to provide as-built plans so the town knows where these lines are located under the road. Number 7, there'd be connection stubs to every property that could connect within 100 feet of the proposed sewer line. That's a primary structure within 100 feet. Number 8, that when the construction is done, that they overlay the impacted portion of Clark Road. The second sentence in number 8 says a performance guarantee satisfactory to the town should be provided. It's not the applicant's intent to post a bond. It is their intent to put the requisite amount of just cash into a town account, so they don't have to do a bond. It'll just be cash, so the town will be fully protected, and of course that'll match whatever the bids are from the contractors. They've retained Wood and Clay as a general contractor to do the work. The subcontractor would be Piscopo Construction, so they've already lined up the people to do the work, and they're already right there now working on these homes. So this isn't new people that have to come in. At number 9, this is a new one that was added, that the owners would indemnify the town if there's any issues, as well as have the contractors do that. Happy to do that. Certificates of insurance be provided from the contractors. Again, that goes without saying. Number 11, that upon completion of construction, the owners will tie into the line and then start paying sewer fees just like everybody else in town that's hooked up does. And then the last one, the town will consider final acceptance of the line once all the conditions have been met 1 year from now. I do have a suggested tweak to this, which I did mention to Matt, and I would prefer that it read, the town will accept, not will consider, but will accept the line once the above conditions are met. As long as they've done these 11 things, we would like the town to say sort of up front, while they put this 200,000 up, that you will accept in a year, provided they do all this. And if they don't, of course, then you wouldn't. But as long as they do everything they said, we would like it to be some assurance up front that it would be accepted. So bottom line, this is an excellent opportunity for the town. I think it continues a trend that we've started as these public-private partnerships. We've done it with the town hall. We've done it with the library. We did it with the Sewell Road extension. In essence, this is free money to the town. There won't be any out-of-pocket money expended by the town. There will be some people time, supervising, but no out-of-pocket time. And bottom line, at the end of the day, we get to protect another section of Lake Winnipesaukee, which is the lifeblood of this town. And every time we can get a house off a septic system and onto the town sewer, that's a plus, particularly with the cyanobacteria issues that we have in Winter Harbor. The study that's being conducted on Kerry Beach, if we can get 3 more houses off now, terrific. And then others may add over time. So bottom line, we respectfully request that the town approve the project. We agree with all the recommendations of the town planner, and we're amenable to all the conditions in there as well, with just that caveat that if we could twist number 12. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. My clients are here. They would be happy to answer any questions that you or anybody in the public may have as well.
What I think I'll do is I'll open it up and see if there's anybody else.
Sure.
Then the board can get you to come back up.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anybody else in the audience who'd like to either speak for or against this proposal? Come on up.
Scott Clem, 135 Clark Road. We have a couple questions on things that have been proposed. Did have a nice conversation with the town planner, Matt, yesterday, who answered a few other ones. A couple of the things that come up, the biggest one is future connection stubs for the properties that are not forced to connect immediately. Are they going to be installed, or would they be installed at a later date, and whose cost would they be at? It was unclear in the proposal as to whether they'd be put in or not put in. A side connection to that is if there is any blasting or chipping that needs to be done to put the line in, which it appears that there needs to be at least directly in the portion that abuts our property. It looks like the test bores are anywhere from 3 to, sorry, 1.5 to 3 feet above where the sewer line is supposed to go at the minimum depth. So if they do put a stub connection in, would there be a trench or a path out of that that would be done at the same time? Or at a later date, would that need to be re-excavated and either re-blast or re-chipped right next to an active sewer line? It's just a question of how would it be done. The other thing is on the plan, it does say the depth of refusal, which we understand to be the depth that they hit ledge in the test bores. How will they go below that? Will it be blasting or will it be chipping? And the main reason being is the largest portion of that is the entire width of our property is in that issue. Another question that came up is if there was a catastrophic failure of the system, all the liquid is going to flow back towards McKinley Park. Is the tank at the last property set up to be able to handle receiving all of that fluid coming back into it that would come back by gravity? I mean, if you're looking at the diagrams, it may appear to have that, it may not. So that's just an open question. Because the last thing we would like to see is to have it all come back to McKinley Park, go into the drain that is right there at the corner, which I believe goes right out to the lake. So if there's something there to protect that would be, a concern. There are a couple concerns with this, looking at the town sewer ordinance that exists presently, and then also the proposed changes that were issued from the planning office. We are absolutely in favor of those proposed changes, especially the one which reduces the distance from 300 feet from a sewer line to a property line to force a connection. 100 feet from a sewer line to a primary structure makes a lot more sense. You know, the 300 foot to a property line, if you had hundreds of acres and your primary structure was a mile from the sewer line, technically you'd be forced to connect. And, you know, the waiver process is in here. We think it's good. We have a system that was put in 2010. So we put in a lot of expense to be compliant, to keep stuff out of the lake, and being forced now because it is within that 300-foot boundary, you know, it is a concern because there's a lot of expense to put a new system in that's compliant, and then we'd have to put that plus more to pump up and to the system in the street. We are in favor of the concept of a sewer line going down Clark Road. Long term, it is a solution pretty much for everybody that's on the road in our mind. It's just a question of being forced to connect immediately versus when our system, you know, if it does run into trouble, sure, we understand that. We are probably one of the 3 seasonal properties. We have above ground water. So to put in a sewer line is, you know, it is a whole change of use for the property if we did elect to go to it. So those are the questions. Sorry if I rambled a little bit. But the rest of it, you know, we think it's a valid thing to do. It's just a question of is there the ability to hold off the conditional approval only until the amendments to the sewer bylaw go into effect? We understand there's a hearing on March 6th where those are going to be discussed and maybe accepted by the Board of Select Persons. That would be great. It's just more of a timing issue. If that had already occurred, we would be here in complete favor of this proposal.
Okay. I'm going to start with Dave Ford, and he has, I think, 4 questions that relate to you.
Okay, let's see if I can remember. So the first one was on the connections, and I did talk to Joe Piscopo, the contractor. So we are planning on dropping off a sewer stub at each of the existing lots, and it'll be in the location where their water service is now. So each one, because we want to, once we pave the road, we hope that we won't have to dig it up. Because the answer to the question is, when someone requests a sewer connection on our sewer system, we give them for $6,000 for a 3-bedroom home, we'll provide a service at the property line. So if they don't install it now, and then 2 years from now someone wants to come in and hook up, we would have to go back in and tap the line. We can do that, but it's better to have it done now ahead of time, as long as, you know, we put, you know, they may want to move it somewhere later, but we will, each lot will have a connection. So that was part of the first question.
And blasting to get, if it was
Okay.
the other issue.
Yeah, that's a good question, because all we will, you know, if it's solid ledge, and another question is too, we talked to the contractor about, well, you want to have frost protection, and normally you have 5.5 feet. We will allow insulation to reduce that, so they can go to 4 feet with 2 inches of insulation. That would reduce the amount of blasting or chipping. The contractor does have a unit that he knows he's going to have to do a little bit, because they're going to be trying to put the main line in the old water line and insulate it in that same trench. I think that's a good idea. And but when we put the services off, if they have to blast and there's ledge there, so yes, you could have a service that's right up against a piece of ledge or a rock. And then when the homeowner wants to tie in, it'll be their expense to bring their house service to that shutoff. There'll be a shutoff right on the valve, a shutoff valve at the property line. So this contractor will not go on their property. We'll leave it there. So if there's an obstacle there, whether it be a rock or ledge, and we'll leave a post mark it and have an as-built so that they'll find it. That's the second question. Third question was on a catastrophic failure of a low-pressure sewer. So the way a low-pressure sewer works, it's really a simple system, and it's a force main. It's a small diameter, could be 2.5, 3 inches, and each individual pump has enough power that they can pump into that line and go the 1,100 feet to our sewer manhole and discharge. So if the failure, the most failure, so if the pipe were to break, and pipes do break, it would be a crack and be in the ground. So that there would be this low pressure sewer, and there's not a lot of pressure on it. It only has the head of the pump, and only when the pump is pumping. And it's pretty flat, the whole stretch. It's not like it's going up a big hill. So I'm trying to think of a worst case scenario, and it's hard to think of any scenario in which the sewage would leave that pipe and get in, because if the pipe were to break, you know, it would come to the surface, and then that's when we would respond and fix the break. So there's no connection, because everything's in the ground, buried, compacted. So if there's a break, it would have to leak up through the soil, and it's going to follow the path of least resistance. And in this area, it might follow the trench, and it'll pop up somewhere in the road, and then we have to fix it. That's the reality. But since I've been here for 12 years, and in the records we've had low-pressure sewers on Sewell Road since 1990s, I can't think of one instance in which these lines have broken. And I can't really think of a catastrophic event in which it would lead to wastewater getting into the lake. But the answer to the question, so there is no system designed to catch it at McKinney Park. It'll be a dead-end line, and it's just, again, it's not something new. It's been around for many years, and I think it's safe. So what was the last question?
That was, he was talking about the depth of the blasting, and I think you took care of that, and then you also took care of the blasting coming into the connection. And
the regulations was the last thing.
What?
So the last thing he talked about was the regulations, and I wanted to make a comment about that. When the sewer regulations were written, when we were expanding sewers, when the town pays for the sewer, like when Sewell Road, we said, hey, that was a pretty big sewer project. We had to force everyone to tie in. That's when they went a little bit overly conservative, because the state standard is 100 feet to the primary residence. The town went way overboard by saying 300 feet to the property line, because we want to force everyone to tie in. But the reality is, I have waived that in certain circumstances. If the house is a mile away and the property is within 300 feet, it doesn't make any sense, and especially if it's a big property and they have a septic system. So I think the issue with and maybe when we updated last year, we should have probably looked at this, that we weren't anticipating it. But I think it's all the changes that have been discussed between Attorney Walker and Matt and myself are all going to be nothing but positive to provide us flexibility, so we're not we can kind of have a win-win. So we can rush, because we are trying to rush this, because these homeowners would like to get their stuff done so they can move in. And that's why there's a need to go quickly tonight to get the approval, so we can go to the state, get their approvals, and as soon as the frost comes out, we can start digging. But the regulations, I don't see any problem with those regulations, because it's just going to, you know, we're being a little bit less strict. And if we were ever to, and I don't see us ever having these major sewer expansions, we're just kind of filling in within our sewer shed now. So I think that I would hate to see you delay until we update the ordinance. The ordinance, as we found before, we make a change, everything's going to be perfect because it goes in there, and it could take more than one meeting to get that resolved.
But you can waiver that. If I'm in the ordinance already, there is a waiver in there?
What it states is that upon the town notifying you to connect, then you have 30 days to connect. So the town has to take an action to force someone to connect.
You said you had wavered that.
Yes. On
occasion. So what you're saying, so I'm assuming it's in the ordinance, that if we don't, or hopefully it's in the ordinance, I should
Well, you got to remember, I live in gray areas, so
yeah,
it's not
I know
black and
that.
white.
That's why I'm saying hopefully.
So it's in a gray area.
Okay. That if we could do that, it wouldn't make any difference in terms of the hookup if we did it on March 6th or the 22nd or whatever.
Well, the reality is, the way we set this up is that we're not going to take it for a year. We want to give them approval to build it. So within a year, we'd have these new regulations. So at this point,
that's right.
That's not an issue.
That's what I'm saying. And I'm going to get Matt up here to give us some of his opinion on the ordinance, but I got it. Does any member of the board have any question for Dave Ford? Seeing none. Matt?
Just a quick comment. The other thing that the ordinance says in its existing form is that it basically gives the town, in the manner that it prescribes, to force people to connect to the existing line. So that manner that the town prescribes, I believe gives us flexibility to have some waiver provision there. The only comment I would make is that although we do have a year to adopt this policy within the ordinance, I am urging the Select Board to take on a potential public hearing for this change as soon as possible, simply because the issue is ripe in our minds right now. I think we have an ordinance draft that is in very good shape that we've worked on with Attorney Walker. So I wouldn't recommend a significant delay on this and potentially taking it on within one of the March meetings, potentially the March 6th meeting if possible, as an effort of good faith.
I don't see any problem with that, but the board really hasn't taken it and read it, whether we're ready on the 6th or the 20th, whatever the next one is of March, it really shouldn't hold up us accepting this project going forward, because we're going to take care of, and we have a draft of that. And board members, are you comfortable? Paul?
I just have a question on your item 12. Attorney Walker pointed out the word consider. So what's your thoughts on removing the word consider?
I think that a conditional approval and acceptance this evening almost seems to apply the same thing. So I'm comfortable with Attorney Walker's suggestion that this be revised to read that the town will accept the line should all of the above conditions be met. I think that's implied with the conditional vote anyway, so I'm comfortable with that.
It just made sense to me as I went through the 11 items. If all of those are done,
there's no reason for the town to not accept it.
What other conditions must there be unless...
I totally agree.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll come back to this motion. Is the board comfortable with making the change to the ordinance in March? Anybody have an issue with that? Does anybody have an issue with the conversation of changing the number 12 to say that we will accept the line at this time?
I'm good with that.
Anybody have any issue with that? Is there anybody else in the audience? I'm coming. I'm not done. All right, come on up.
Keep going.
One further point of clarification. You indicated that the connection stubs would be placed near the water lines. Is it possible to have that located in a different location if we desire to have it moved? I figured I'd ask now, pre-construction.
Yeah, we'd have to know pretty soon. So as soon as this gets approved, if you want a specific location, we could work with the contractor. It might be a little more money for you because the way he was planning, was trying to save money, but it all depends where the ledge is. So hopefully we can find a spot where there's not as much lead if you have a preferred location versus where it is. But I could work with you and Norway Plains on that. So
I think I heard there's a best effort to do that. Not a commitment, but there's a best effort on the part of the town to want to do that.
Okay, do I have anybody else in the audience who'd like to either speak for or against this?
Hi, thank you. My name is Linda Pero. We have actually a full-time home on Clark Road. And I have a question about geological. Has a geological survey been done in the area to figure out the impact on those properties that will have to connect at some later point? You know, we're sitting on ledge. So I would just like the board to consider the cost of blasting in order to get a line through. My understanding is that you cannot put a water line and a sewer line in the same trench. So you need two separate trenches for your water and your sewer. So I'm an educator and I am totally out of my realm in this. So my apologies. So I may be asking silly questions. However, so that's one question. The other thing is, would the board consider waiving the connection fees if we do have to do all this blasting? So that's it. So I think long term, yes, this is a great plan. I think it's beneficial to the town. However, there is a cost.
Okay, so we did not do a geological study. That would infer a real detailed type study. What they did is they did ledge probes along the area. We know from different construction that's being done what we have out there. So what she's saying is true, that if there was not ledge there, obviously it would be a lot cheaper. So that is, you know, so we didn't do a detailed study, but we kind of know what the area is. In terms of waiving, we were not anticipating, because again, the sewer department is we have a small amount of users, we have a lot of expenses. This will not increase our operation and maintenance expense that much, because the wastewater coming in, it will be able to handle it. It's not going to be that much more work for us. However, we do have a lot of upgrades that need to be done. The Clark Road pump station, that's about 30 years old. It's still running good. The pumps are good. At some point, we're going to have to replace the concrete. That's not because of this project, just because it's getting old. Other pump stations, other plant upgrades, and we count on those connection fees as we expand, so they're kind of joining the system now. They haven't paid a sewer bill in 30, 40 years where everyone else has. So we feel those connection fees are warranted for us to continue to maintain the service we provide. So at this point, there are provisions, though, for hardship, which we are putting in the regulations. So if there's reasons why someone can't afford it because of different issues, I think the town wants to be flexible and see whether we can payment plans or maybe at the sale of the house if it's a real tough situation. So we want to be flexible because we do realize that the $6,000 connection fee may only be a small portion. They may have to pay another $10,000 to connect their house to that line. So, but each house is different, and I think you probably have one of the tougher ones. So I think that would be, we'll leave a service there, and we can work with them in terms of trying to do that. But at this point, I think, did I answer those two questions?
You also had the water, you put a water line and a sewer line.
Oh, that was it. So the state standard says that when you're putting in main lines, you want a 10-foot separation between water and sewer. That's kind of a standard. But when you do your water sewer services, it's because of, you don't want to have cross-contamination. But our sewer lines here are under pressure, the water lines are under pressure. It's really hard to have cross-contamination. I've talked with the contractor about situations in which we may put the water sewer services in the same trench if we can sleeve the sewer line. So we'll provide protection. So instead of having the 10-foot separation, we can have a sleeve to protect one of the lines. And we're looking at cost-effective ways to keep the intent of that rule there, but to be practical when you have these water sewer services. I think there's very little chance. So we will be working with the contractor on those locations of those services.
So have we put it in so that there are sleeves?
We haven't put anything in yet.
All right.
But if we put a water line, if we put a sewer line in the same trench as a water line, then we'll have to sleeve it to protect it in case there is a leak.
Okay, and that would be a requirement.
That would be a town requirement.
Right, yep.
State, in the road, we're still supposed to keep 10 feet separation. But when we get on the private property, I think we can use good engineering judgment.
Did that take care of all your questions? Okay. Is there anybody else in the audience who'd like to speak to this sewer line at this public hearing at this time? Come on up.
Just a quick one, sorry.
Sure.
Edward Clem, 135 Clark Road. My hearing departed 20 years earlier than it probably should have, so I just want to make sure I'm tracking with the proposed amendments to the sewer ordinance. We would strongly prefer not depending on leveraging a waiver to not have to connect at a point in time, and would strongly prefer to see in writing in the sewer ordinance the language change. So I just wanted to make sure, see where we ended on that.
The proposal is for the Board of Selectmen to look at a change to the sewer ordinance either at the March 6th or the second meeting in March and approve it at that particular time. I was the one who said, well, if we hadn't gotten that done, could you do a waiver? And that was what I was trying. But our intent is to take a look at that sewer line and ordinance and make those changes. We just can't tell you for sure we're going to do it on the 6th or not. I haven't had time to really study it at this particular point. We've seen copies of it, but we could come up before the 6th meeting and there may be something we just want to tweak. Sure. But our intent is to do that, and that would take care of the issue.
Is there an opportunity to pend approval of the sewer line on a determination of acceptance of those ordinances, considering that the digging can't start till the ground thaws anyways?
We can talk about it when we close the public hearing between the board members on whether we want to do that or not. We'll take that.
We don't want to hold up the homeowners, believe me, just want to kind of protect us as well.
We understand that.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody else in the audience who'd like to speak? Seeing none. Randy, come on up.
Thought you were going to just give me a quick chance to come back, and I'll be very brief. What I'm hearing from the butters that did come, that they're conceptually in favor of the project. It's a good idea. It's win-win for everybody, the town, the butters, and the applicants. I think the only concern that I hear is the waivers, and that there might need to be some tweaking of that. We did make some suggestions where we could address the concerns that were raised, but from a timing perspective, we absolutely would like you to approve it tonight. An application has to go into the DES, and often it'll take 60 days to get that approved. Now we're just before Memorial Day. They're trying to get this project done before traffic and all that comes, so timing is a little bit important. And again, the line won't be accepted for over a year, so no one will be forced to tie in for at least that year period. So you've got plenty of time to do it, to address the legitimate concerns that these people have raised this evening, in which we've suggested on our waivers. I think we'll address every one of their concerns. But so again, respectfully request that you approve the project this evening.
Thank you. Now I'll try one again. Is there anybody in the audience? Dave?
Sorry, I forgot to mention something else. Did you see my letter to the board about my recommendation and about working with one of the property owners on a drainage easement? Was that in the package?
I didn't read it.
Did not make it in, Dave.
It didn't make it in?
It did not.
Okay. I wrote a memo specifically at the end of Clock Road, where McKinney Park, we have that parking. We have a drainage issue. The water line was replaced back in 2007, 2008. And at that point, it was just a water line replacement, but we ended up putting some road money, and we resurfaced and did as good a job as we could. But there's been a nagging problem there for some time, because we didn't have wetland permits, and we couldn't really get the full solution all the way to the lake. As a result, the water goes through McKinney Park and then kind of leaches out, and then kind of ends over on an abutting property, which has created a long-term problem. I've been trying to work with them, trying to resolve it, but we really do need to get an easement from the property owner. We need to get a permit to do the work. And what I'm suggesting is that we work with that property owner, which is Mrs. Sharp, and that's the last house right on the side of McKinney Park. And in return for that, we work with them on their connection fee, because it's going to be, there'll be one of the houses that has to tie in, and they have a leach field right in the area where we have a very wet area. So I think it's a win-win for us, so we can correct a drainage problem, and we can work with the property owner. So the idea was just that the selectmen would allow the departments to work with the property owners to come up with an equitable solution, so that we could do both, get them connected and get a drainage easement and do a BMP down there, so do some stormwater treatment. So I think it'd be a win-win. At the same time also, maybe we can, the parking lot was never done that well there. If you've ever been there, so it's pretty rough, so we might be able to fix that grading there and make it a little better for parking at McKinney Park.
But that's something separate from this, because we're
yeah.
accepting a sewer line.
Yep.
This proposal sounds to be something that we as the Board of Selectmen need to decide and approve in the relationship to one person.
Yep, and the only reason I say that, because I had sent a letter to you to have the discussion. I told the property owner that I thought you had had it, but so they were here. I want to mention it. We can discuss it at a later date, because it'll be some time. But I still think it's important that they understand that they are an important property in this project also, and that as long as we can work with them.
And I'm sorry, we don't have it to read it, but I'm sure that we're more than willing to, we have been in the past more than willing to work with property owners and taxpayers, but that shouldn't affect us moving forward on this, and I don't want to get too confused, but we hear.
Yeah, so this was a really good idea, which David had come up with. It made it really too late for the package to be put together, so that's why you don't see it in here. And we really didn't want to confuse the two issues based on the public hearing, but the idea which David came up with is a fantastic idea to resolve a lot of problems at the same time.
And we can put it on the next agenda and deal with it at that particular point in time. Board members, okay, anything on that water issue that you want to speak to? I still have got the public hearing open, but I just wanted to check. Okay, is there anybody else in the audience who'd like to speak to the public hearing? Seeing and hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Board members, do you have any questions that you would like to ask either our town planner or our public works director or the applicant's attorney? Hearing and seeing none, Would one of the board members like to read the motion that is on the third page of the packet?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to conditionally approve the private construction and subsequent public acceptance of an extension of the Clark Road sewer line from Greenleaf Drive to Lawando Lane, subject to the following conditions listed 1 through 12, with the condition number 12 being changed to the town will accept the line upon conditions 1 through 11 being met.
Do I have a second to that?
Second.
Do I have any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. You're all set. You're welcome. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the bulk vote. We have the weekly manifest of February 15th we're signing. We have tax abatement refunds. We have approval of 2 properties. We have property tax credit exemptions for 2 properties. We have a notice of intent to cut wood or timber. We have one of those. We have 2 current use application changes. We have an elderly tax deferment application, and we are accepting donations under $10,000 per RSA 3195B, and the 2 gifts or donations, we received $850 towards the economic development, business retention and expansion meeting. And last night, Wolfeboro deposited $805.60 from the donation jar. So those have been put into our accounts. Can I have a motion? I'll move to accept the bulk vote. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next item on the agenda, we have an appointment of 2 people to the Cyanobacteria Committee. Neither of them, they're here tonight. Shelley Rondo is our health officer, and I received a email from her requesting to be put on the committee, and I think that's a great idea. The other one is Pat Tarpey. The committee talked about adding her to the committee. She is the executive director of the Winnipesaukee Association, and I think would add a lot to the committee. Does anybody have any questions concerning the 2 applicants? When we put these 2 on, we will have 11 on the committee. I think at that point we should hold, but we will have opportunities if other people would like to serve on subcommittees. I think the Cyanobacteria Committee is going to have 3 subcommittees, so we would be more than willing to add people to those subcommittees. So can I have a motion?
Move to accept the appointments or make the appointments of Shelley Rondo and Pat Tarpey to the Cyanobacteria Committee with immediate effect.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All righty, we'll move on. We're on to new business. First one is Clark Road, McKinney Park. Mr. Ford.
So in our discussion about Clark Road, I had met with the shops and talked about issues, again, drainage issue being one of them, concern about the sewer. But really, she brought to my attention what's going on out there in the summer months where people from out of town, sometimes from Maine, come in with multiple vehicles, and people, it's apparently a nice area to dive off McKinney Point. It gets very deep very quickly, and I guess there must be some interesting things to go diving there. So at certain times, these divers come and run a commercial business, and we only have parking for 2, maybe 3 vehicles. So what happened this past summer, they were parking in Conrad's property because there was no one there, and scattered around, and sometimes they get pretty congested. So I really think it's a beautiful little park, but it really cannot handle a commercial operation. I don't think we would want to have commercial people coming down to Cary Beach or Brewster Beach without permission to use town property. So I think what I'm asking here is to kind of respect what they're going through and say, hey, no commercial operation on this property and no parking without permission. And that's kind of what I put in the letter for your consideration, just to help the residents down at the end of the road, because it is kind of congestion and it does gets kind of crazy.
And it's not in one of our local shops down there.
No, all our people.
I just wanted to make sure.
Well, it's almost, because our guys go out in boats. So if they want to come to, and we love them to come, just go see Dive Winnipesaukee and they'll take you out on the boat. So we really want to push them to do it that way versus trying to overload a little neighborhood and take advantage of a nice little park.
Board members, do anybody have a question for Mr. Ford regarding this? So my understanding is that we're going to purchase 2 signs, one which will say no commercial scuba diving classes allowed without Board of Selectmen approval, and another one say no parking on paved portion of Clark Road or on private property without permission. And those are the signs we're going to install. Anybody have any concerns?
One other thing I'll mention too, we're going to reach out to, we think we might know who some of these companies are.
Okay.
So we'd like to reach out to them ahead of time and tell them, don't come here any longer. We don't want to surprise them, so we're trying to give them a heads up. So I'm talking to the local scuba guys, and they can tell me who they are. So we'll try to get a letter out to them saying that they'll know.
Perfect. That sounds good. So I'll make a motion that we install the 2 signs with the wording that's on this memo. Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Take care of that. Next item on the agenda is the Wolfeboro Area Farmers Market lease renewal.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Megan Young. I'm the president of the Wolfeboro Area Farmers Market, and I'm here for the annual request to utilize Clark Park for our summer market.
Do you want to kind of, this gives you an opportunity to kind of tell the public when you're going to be there, the times, and some information about it?
That's what happens when you get to be doing this on your very first time. So the Wolfeboro Area Farmers Market is meeting same time that we have for a number of years, 12:30 to 4:30 on Thursdays in the park there. We are hoping this year to have approval to expand our dates to the 23rd of May up through the 31st of October, with one special market happening on a Wednesday that is the 3rd of July. This year the market Thursday falls on the 4th of July, which tends to be a very interesting date in town. We would prefer not to conflict with any of the town's 4th of July celebrations and would really like to, if possible, have a market on that 3rd. If not, then we will probably not have a market that week.
Okay. So did you bring, or do you have the map for the parking and the layout?
So I wasn't entirely certain whether we were talking about the parking for patrons or parking for the vendors.
We're talking about the parking on Clark Road. There was a map that laid out that you park on the inner side of the road and that you're required to put no parking on the outside. Okay. Okay, perfect. Let me just kind of pass that. You have your insurance. Okay, perfect. Perfect. Okay, I'll pass this down that way. And I'll give that to the town manager. He can make a copy of it. Okay, board members, we have a request to change number 2 terms of the license, and you're asking for it to start on May 22nd?
23rd.
23rd. Okay. And going through the 31st of October. with one change, that the July 4th Thursday is removed, and you're given permission to do it on Wednesday, July 3rd.
Please.
Board members have any issue with that?
Nope.
Any discussion?
I have a minor comment. Just to reiterate, a few years ago, the board said that anybody who has a farm in Wolfeboro can display there. That's still correct, right?
As long as they meet our criteria, absolutely.
Yeah, well, it didn't
We
used to be.
welcome all of the application that we can get.
Yeah, from Wolfeboro, so that's open. If you have a farm in Wolfeboro, you want to go there, see the manager.
Okay. Is there any other discussion or comments? Hearing none, and I have a motion?
So moved.
I'm assuming you're...
I move to allow the farmer's market once again to occupy Cart's Park for the year, summer, under the dates proposed.
Okay, do I have a second to that? Second. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you
for
very
coming
much.
and filling us in.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Next item on the agenda is a capital reserve funds for the water treatment facility.
That would be the wastewater treatment facility.
That's
So
what
it's,
that's why I hesitated when I read it.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
says, it's wastewater.
Yep.
Okay. All righty.
So this is a new policy now that where the cap reserve funds are set up at the discretion of the selectmen to approve the expenditures. I think the staff came together and said we should probably bring it to you first. In the past, there's been discussions through the capital project report that I do, or when you approve the payment on these projects. But so we're now bringing them in front of you first. So in the purchase order you have now, I think it's $52,000 to Woodard and Curran.
Yeah, 52,000. Looks like 596.
Right. So this project, we've been working on upgrades at the wastewater facility. So this was one of 3 separate projects that we tried to get done in the summer and the fall. When this one was going through with the old policy, we realized that the $50,000 check from the insurance did not get put into the cap reserve fund, so there wasn't enough money. So we had to put it on hold. So this has been on hold probably since the fall, and trying to get this resolved. So now that the money, we voted to put it into the cap reserve fund, so the money's there now, and now it's just a matter of the new policy saying that the selectmen authorize the expenditure for the, and this is again upgrades at the facility that are right now on hold because we had dug it all up and we had to put it on hold until this got approved.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Ford? Hearing none, can I have a motion?
Move to approve the purchase order, Town of Wolfeboro to Woodward and Curran for $52,596, replacement of 6 sludge tank valves and associated other work products.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Next item on the agenda is the water and sewer rates.
Okay, so last time we had Underwood make a presentation. I think we tried to confuse you as much as we could, and we asked for a summary sheet. I did get a summary sheet. I ran it by Paul. He gave me the nod, and hopefully it's what you were looking for.
Subject to the board saying.
But then I got some questions, and I did do a little more homework, and I'd like to give you a handout into, because you do have a bunch of information with the packet.
Yep.
This is specific to the questions that came through.
Okay, I asked questions about how much cash was in the fund, if we did the 2% or the 3%, what would we have, and what would we have 10 years from now? And that's what this is.
Probably will.
The other thing you asked was
did ask for the balance. It was, and I mean, I asked for the cash balance in the fund right now.
Well,
Whatever.
18, I don't think it's going to be a big change, but you haven't done the other.
The one thing to realize that when Underwood presented, they had done this detailed study and a model in 2017 with certain assumptions. When we came for the upgrade, and we were a little bit late, update, some of the assumptions were incorrect. So we had to,
Make adjustments?
the biggest thing was the hydrant fees.
Yeah.
And once we had a reduction in the hydrant fees, then that created, how do we make it up? So we try to get closer to our goal. And so everyone understands, we had done an asset management plan and identified $100 million of cost that has to be done over the next 100 years. And while this is a marathon, not a race, we said, let's take our time. How do we get to being able to fund the water department $1 million a year, which is what we need to be sustainable? And the plan was, this was a 10-year plan to try to get us to a point where the rates would be increased. And as we have a significant amount of debt from the 90s, where we did a lot of construction with the water plant and water lines. That debt is slowly falling off now. And as the debt falls off, we're trying to use that money to put into the cap reserve fund. So let's go to the questions. And when I try to do question one, if you go to the chart, you'll see what are we proposing to put in. And I have two scenarios, because tonight we're looking at the chance of a 2% water rate and a 3% water rate, because that was the discussion. So question one, the cap reserve fund, you can see it based on the 2%, and we put 50,000 in 2018. This year, the model would say that we would only be net $8,784 revenues in excess of expenses. We add the 8,000 to the 50,000, so at the end of the year we'd have 58,000. And it goes on. In 2020, the difference would be 66,000. In 2021, 168,000. You can see how that is growing each year as the debt is falling off. I ran the same scenario under the 3%, so you can see the difference if we have a 3% increase for 2019 and 2020 to make up the difference. And that's down under the, the second box is the scenario where we have a 3% increase in 19 and 20, and then go back to a 2% increase for the next 8 years. The other question was, what is the 2019 debt reduction? And that's highlighted where it says question 2, and it says the delta or the debt. So
Can I just stop you, Dave?
Yes.
Apologize for interrupting you. If I look at your question 2 chart, you go level funding on capital at 2022?
The capital outlay, that's so one of the things we wanted to show, and in this item, capital items in the budget, that is within our O&M budget. If we have items under $10,000 to repair assets, we should be taking credit for that. So that's in our budget now. We're growing that at 2% a year. That's the assumption. The capital outlay, which is a separate budget but still part of our rates, we had figured that we would be at 125,000, and then it was going to increase each year, and then the model just levels it off at a certain point. But that's, again, theoretical model, so we just leveled it because the bigger projects will be done on the CIP. And we think at that level, that's probably a sustainable level for the projects between 10,000 and 100,000.
And where's the CIP impact in here?
So when you go down and you see the
is that the CFI less proposed CIP?
Yes.
That line there?
Yes. So the CIP, I was trying to make this chart simple because I had so many different lines. I was trying to eliminate some of the lines, so some of them are hitting. So we have a cap reserve that I hit on you, sorry. So that plan, so when you see the number 120, say, look at 2020, and we have 125,000 We added 66,000.
So is that the two, then the next year, the 294,026, is that how you got to that number?
The bottom line, the cap reserve fund less proposed CIP, so we have the asset management plan that we did has proposed funding, the smaller funding, 100,000, 200,000. So the first 10 years, we don't have any big expenditures, but we do have a, it's figured in there so that we can continue to do smaller projects in this 10-year period, or we can hold off on the projects and build up the capital reserve fund. The net difference, though, is shown in the capital reserve fund. So we see the fund is building. When you see question 1, water capital reserve fund, so we start off at 50,000, but it is being added to and taken out of every year, like we do. You know, we're putting in money each year and taking it out.
Yep. So in 21, we're taking a bunch out, 168,531, because then.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I have that sheet here too. I'm sorry.
Just getting it here, it takes us a little while to figure out.
No, again, it's there's a lot of questions you can ask, and there's a lot of things. So if we can go back through the questions, and then I can come back to that if I haven't answered it. Because the question is, how will a 1% increase in water rates going from 2% to 3% impact the cap reserve fund? That was a question because we felt we had a hole that was made when we didn't get what the selectmen requested. So the difference is down the bottom when we say, well, let's take question 3. How will the 1% increase?
Number 3 I asked. I was on number 3 I was asking, okay, we're going from 2 to 3%. Is that 1% is added only to catch up on the hydrant fees? And that's what I was trying, because
yes.
I try to explain it. I'll go to a meeting and try to explain it, and I wasn't quite sure whether that 1% was only the hydrant fees or whether there was some other.
No, what it's doing is we're losing a certain amount each year from the model. So now we have to change the model. Instead of having a variable rate on the hydrant fee based on 20% of the total budget, it's going to be $324,500. So we put that in the model, and then we say, how do we reach our goal, trying to get to, you know, as close to 100% funding as possible? And I tried to say, let's not go crazy with the rates. So we looked at, if we increase the rates in 19 and 20 by 1%, what impact will it have 10 years from now? I think that was the question. And the answer is, and it's kind of amazing because the only amount of money that's the increase between 3% and 2%, in 19 it'll be $14,000, in 2020 it's $28,000. So that's about $40,000. But the magic of compounded interest makes that, in the long run, actually will help. We'll have more money, so we'll be 89% funded if we do the 3% now with the decreased rates.
Assuming it's invested properly.
Versus being 86% funded. And the difference there, we're looking at the total of 3.2 million in 10 years versus 2.9 million. So you're about 244,000 to the good if you do that small increase now.
For 2 years.
For 2 years, and then stick with the 2% going forward.
And so every year we can tell the ratepayers from here on, these 2 years it's 3%, but every year thereafter you're going to see a 2% increase each year. That's what you're saying here.
Yes, that's what we should plan on. But I would suggest we review it every so many years to look at our capital plan, to see where we are. The other thing too, I talked to Underwood engineers, I think we haven't built in the model is getting grants and loan forgiveness. So we could reduce rate increases if we can fund projects with grant money. So I think we need to up our efforts going after, there is grant money now for the water fund, has a fund now, and there's, so we got to make sure we kind of, as we have done in the past, try to get as much money as we can to parlay our projects.
Okay, so what my understanding is, we have about 1.3 million in cash in the fund based on what you gave me.
Yep.
the money going across that says Water Capital Reserve Fund, next year, at the end of the year, we're going to put $58,782 in, or are we going to put the $8,784 in?
So this scenario I ran doesn't include what you might add. So you're going to add only $8,700 to the $50,000 to get you 58.
So we're going to do a transfer, because from the water fund to a capital reserve fund. So it's going to come out of there. It will not include, this number will not get any surplus and grow, because we're taking that surplus and putting it in the capital reserve fund.
Right. Well, it can, it'll earn interest there, so it'll grow.
Well, I'm just looking at the mechanics of what you're saying we're going to do.
In 2020, I would propose that we put a line item in our water budget to fund the capital reserve account, so that way we could authorize the funding with the budget versus doing it the way we did it. Is that possible?
But I'd have to look at it. But when you have the reduction in the expense of the bonds, interest and principal payment, I thought that reduction, we would then put that in the budget as a transfer to the capital reserve account.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's what you're asking.
Yes, that's what, yeah, that's what we didn't do it in 2019.
No, I'm just, yeah.
Because it's not actually what's happening in 2019, because we're 3 months late. These are all based on 12 months. But to go change the model, I couldn't do that. So we are, and it's not much money anyways, whether we do the 3% or the 2%. The difference is not what happens in 2019. The difference is what happens in 2028.
Yeah, but as we've done this building at all, I'm just looking at the mechanics of we're not going to hold any more within the water fund itself. Those surpluses and the gain on the interest and principal are going to be transferred over to a capital reserve account maintained by the trustees of the trust funds.
But we still will maintain a healthy balance.
I'm saying,
yep, just whatever we decide, how much more to take out, and then this fund will grow.
Right now we have if we have 1.3 million. Yep. So my next question was, the last time we wanted to get some of the grants, they talked about us having too much cash in the water fund. Do you know what amount we need to not qualify for grants?
That was for the RDA, the Rural Development Authority, in which we had was successful in previous years before I came. But once they found our audit, and so we had cash, because RDA likes to fund poor communities. So we kind of were not available to that fund, but we still can get SRF funds, we can get grant funds and loan funds. There's other ones, but that particular one, I think we are now healthy enough, and as we build up these cash reserves, we are going to be one of the few utilities who are actually planning for the future and being sustainable. So as a result, we may not be able to qualify for RDA loans and grants, but we would for other
all the other ones. Okay. All right.
The other thing, too, I had done a sheet to determine what the impact would be on sewer users who use the minimum and who use a lot. I don't know if you want to see that, and I can read those, what they are.
Yeah, I think I'd like to have it. Gives us an idea of what we're doing.
So on the water side, we were looking at a user who used 1,500 gallons a month. That would be a low user. They would only pay the fixed rate charge. If you go over 1,500 gallons, then you pay the gallon charge. And if someone who uses 6,000 gallons, that would be a big family with a lot of showers going on. So we looked at the 6,000, and their current water bill right now for the low cost or the minimum bill would be $244.80 for the year. So anyone who's on the water system now, that's the minimum bill. If they have a large flow and they're using 6,000 gallons a month, their bill for the year would be $824.22. And what I did here, you can see the 2% rate increase would be $4.90 increase for the small user, $16.54 for the large user. And if we did the 3% increase, It's $7.34 for the year versus $24.73. So the net increase of the 2% to 3% on the water users would be $2.45 per year for a low user and $8.18 for a high user. So it's not a dramatic, and I've been looking at these numbers all day because I kept thinking, how is this working? Now we're doing so, 10 years from now, but it goes back to the compounding interest, which is pretty interesting. On the sewer side, we had proposed a 2.5% increase, but I wasn't sure if the board was thinking that was too high, so I did a 2% and a 2.5%, the same scenario, looking at the current bill for a low-cost user. So right now, if you're 1,500 gallons a month, you're $240 for the year. If you're 6,000, you're $1,112 a year. And the rate increases for the 2% would be $480 for the small user, $22 for the large user. And if we went to 2.5%, which is what we're suggesting, is $6 for the low user per year and $27.80 for the high user. So I wanted to know what the impacts would be. Our recommendation is for the 3% on the water and 2.5% on the sewer. And in 2020, our recommendation would be the same. In 2021, we would go to 2% for water and 2.5% for sewer. But I would strongly suggest we re-look at them, see how we're doing in terms of the revenues projected. These are all, this is all a theoretical model based on how much water we're going to sell, how many connections are going to be made. So we have to make a lot of assumptions. So this is a theoretical model, so it won't work out. But what's good about it is the impact of 1% makes in 2019 on 2028. Questions?
Thank you for doing that. Makes it a little clearer.
I'm sorry I cut out the CIP too, so I do have that sheet. I just try to simplify it. I simplified it too much, I think.
Well, no, I think it does what I was looking for, to see how that capital reserve fund was going to grow and where we were going to get the money from. So yes, that does answer that question for me. Board members, did anybody else have any questions for Mr. Ford?
Some comments, I'll wait.
Well, now's the time to make them.
Okay, I think I'm inclined to be supportive of this. I find, however, as a for members of the public, this is a bit confusing. We have 4 enterprise operations in the town, and they each have, at least one of them has a very different way in which they go about pricing. And I'd like to suggest, and I am going to be supportive of this, because I think Dave is right in his 1-page or 2-page summary that he provided, that we do need to catch up. In consideration of the fact that we have a capital improvement program, so we've clearly laid out our CapEx requirements for the next 10 years, we're all over our town departments' budgets. We work hard, and you work hard at trying to make sure your OA&M costs are just as tight as you can get them, and you're as techy as you can be. We know that every so often you have to borrow money, or stuff happens. You have extraordinary circumstances. The real issue that this comes down to, and Dave, you put your finger on it at the very end, is this is all theoretical because it's all based upon how much we sell. So, to me, this is a revenue requirements model. How much revenue do we have to fund the things that we want to do, knowing that we're going to manage the living bejeepers out of all of these lines? We're going to manage them extremely carefully. And I would like to ask that we, whenever the right time is, Madam Chairman, whether it's next year or whenever, I would like to put all of the enterprise funds on the table and have a revenue requirements conversation. Because it's not clear to me whether 2.5% or 3% is the right number. It's probably more than 1.5%, and it's probably less than 4%. But I'd really like to do this, and I'd like to do it not only for water, for sewer, for Pop Whalen, for electric. I really think we need to have a view of what are the revenues we need to have to keep these operations going. But also, when I look across these cash and cash equivalents, we're lugging $11.35 million of cash sitting in our bank accounts. So there's got to be some kind of balance between how much cash we're holding, how much revenue we're going to generate, and how much capital we're going to spend. And we need to make sure that we're pricing our services accordingly. So long-winded answer, but first of all, I'll thank you for putting together the one-pager. It helped me a lot, and I appreciate you doing it. It was good work. Secondly, I am inclined to approve or to be supportive of your proposed rate increase, but I do ask that longer term we start looking at this from a revenue requirements point of view. I think it would be best for all concerned. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
All right, I will give you one response, is that's one of the reasons why I asked for these long additions, because that does give me the expenses, and it does tell me what we're doing on revenue and what we're selling. We also get that from the monthly reports. I've seen it here in the water and sewer. I've seen it in the electric, that it's based, those rates are based on what we're going to bring in and what we're going to spend. And that's what this whole sheet is all about. I think the one that we don't is the Pop Whalen. I think we have to do more work on Pop Whalen, but I feel very comfortable with this. I want to thank Dave Ford for spending the time to write all those charts and get the answers. And as you can see, we are 5 different people. One person likes it in a chart like this, and another wants it in a spreadsheet with more numbers on it. So I thank you for doing that. Does any other member of the board have any comments or questions? Like to make any comments? Okay. If not, I'm going to need a motion. And I will support. I think we do need the 3%. I was hoping we wouldn't have to go that high, but I think we do have to make up for that hydrant fee. It would be nice to have it a little bit higher in the operating budget. So the proposal, I think, that you're asking for, Dave, is a 3% increase in the water rates and a 2.5% increase in the sewer rates.
Right, and we would make them effective starting
March 1?
March 1, so it would be, the first bill they would see would be the April billing would have the increased amounts, and again, there would be slight increases, but that's what we'd like to do this year. And then next year we'd be ready earlier in the fall so that these rates will go in effect January 1st next year.
Okay, I'll make that motion. 3% increase in the water rates, 2.5% in the sewer rates starting March 1st, 2019, taking effect on the bill April 1, 2019.
Second.
Do I have any further discussion or comments?
The 3% is for 2 years, correct? 2019?
I'm just doing this year.
Oh, just this year, okay.
We'll
So
come back
we're
and revisit
doing-
next year.
Yeah, okay.
1 year, okay? Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Got that? Thanks, Dave. Okay. Next item on the agenda, I will turn over to the town manager.
Yeah, if we could table this, the finance director was not able to make it this evening to discuss the capital reserve spending policy.
I'd like to make a motion to table the capital reserve policy. Do I have a second? Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Next item is also from the town manager. This is the public safety building.
So the public safety building had the generator serviced. As a result of that service work, it was determined, we service that twice a year, it was determined that the complete exhaust system required replacement. We have an estimate from the service company of $3,810. We're concerned because that will have a significantly negative impact on the public safety building's operating budget. We feel that this falls within the language of the Building Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund, which currently has approximately $86,000 as a balance, and we're respectfully requesting the board consider allowing this expenditure to occur out of that capital reserve fund.
Do I have any questions from the board? Hearing none, can I have a motion?
Yeah, Go ahead, Dave. I'll make a motion that the, let's see, existing building maintenance capital reserve fund previously established for the purposes of making needed repairs be utilized to fund the repair of $3,810 for the repairs to the generator at the public safety building.
I'll second that.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Do I have any old business? Any other business? I do have some other business. I'm going to read a statement. There has been some misinformation that I'd like to correct. Clarify some misinformation regarding the dockside restrooms warrant Article 15. The voters are not just being asked to add 3 new toilets and a urinal, but instead to upgrade the restrooms and replace the existing 2 toilets and sinks. So when this project is completed, there will be a modern restroom facility with 3 toilets in the women's area, 2 toilets and a urinal in the men's area, for a total of 5 toilets instead of 2, and an additional, with an addition of 2 more. Addition and of a urinal, 2 sinks, and 2 changing tables. The dockside restroom expansion and upgrade project was developed from citizens' input. In 2015, the Public Works Department and members of the Board of Selectmen attended 2 public forums to evaluate and discuss 3 possible upgrades to the dockside area. The town also had a survey for residents to fill out on the 3 proposals. These meetings were held to find out what Wolfeboro citizens wanted. There was not a supermajority who wanted one of the 3 design options for the area, but most people wanted additional year-round restrooms and did not want portable toilets. Again, in 2015, the Board of Economic Development Committee did a business expansion and retention survey with 93 businesses. One of the key findings was a need for more public restrooms in town. Based on the findings of the 2 committees and the survey, the board established the restroom committee. The committee systematically evaluated the community needs for restrooms and set a priority as to which one should be done first. One was a Fossfield building with 3 unisex winterized restrooms, which has been completed. Number 2 was the expansion and upgrade to the dockside restrooms, and 3 was the upgrade and expansion of the railroad station restrooms. This weekend, and on Monday and Tuesday, the town was filled with snowmobiles, people enjoying winter activities out on Wolfeboro Bay, residents and tourists taking part in the food truck event. This would have been the perfect time for the town to be able to open 2 winterized bathrooms at the dockside building. To me, listening to citizens and putting forth warrant articles that address the community needs is not mismanagement, but a way the town government should respond to citizens. While the tax rate has increased over the 13 years that I have been on the Board of Selectmen, the voters have approved raising and appropriating funds to improve the town assets, such as the town hall, the wastewater effluent disposal system, sidewalks and curbing, such as the sidewalk in front of Hunters, the annual road improvements, the roadway around the railroad station with the electric wires underground, the Fossfield building, the Abenaki Four Seasons Lodge, and last year, the Wolfeboro Public Library. If you would like more information about the 2019 warrant articles, you can go to the town website homepage. There is a PowerPoint presentation labeled 2019 warrant article presentation. And there are 2 important dates for you to remember. March 4th, The Chamber of Commerce will hold a candidates forum here at the Great Hall at 5:30. Town elections will take place on March 12th from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., again here in the Great Hall. And on the town's website homepage, Pat Waterman has posted the town election sample ballots for residents to review. So does anybody else have any other business? Hearing none, Town Manager.
A couple items to report to you. First of all, Monday, the town report will be available to all citizens. We will have them available here at the Great Hall, at the Town Hall. We will also make them available at the library and at the Public Safety Building. I had the opportunity last week to observe Public Works with the Water Department working on Railroad Street for a water leak. Those men had spent the entire evening previously plowing snow, and at the end of their shift, they ended up having to spend several hours down on Railroad Street repairing a water leak. The work that those gentlemen did, being extremely tired, was quite impressive to watch. With that said, Mr. Ford had approached me. We have got some concerns going forward with the Public Works budget based on the amount of storms that we had. Just to give you an idea of where we're at with some of our budgets that fall under that. Overtime for the Public Works garage is 89% used at this point. Overtime for the water crew, 114% used at this point. Overtime for the sewer crew, 44% used at this point. Salt, 85% used. Sand, 66%. Diesel fuel, 40%. And vehicle maintenance, 88%. So we're working on some strategies to be able to contain some of these, and it's early, and we've got some concerns. With that said, a couple of employees of the Public Works Department have worked. This is kind of a really neat thing, and I just wanted to brief the board on it. They're putting together a town employee fishing derby. So what they've done is they've gone out, they've secured the appropriate permits from New Hampshire Fish and Game. They're going to have an entry fee for the town employees, which will go toward feeding the contestants, and they're going to have a bragging rights trophy for whoever catches the largest fish. It'll occur March 2nd on Mirror Lake, and I just thought that the board ought to hear that. These guys work hard, and for them to put this together, it really kind of, for better terms, warmed my heart to see these guys coming together and doing that. And the last thing, we haven't briefed you to this point, I think everybody's aware, but we have hired Amy Capone-Muccio as the executive assistant to the town manager's office, and that's what I've got.
Hey, congratulations.
I'm glad you came here tonight so we could congratulate you.
Are you on a trial period, or you're right in?
Okay, next thing on the agenda, committee reports. I'll start down with Paul.
Quiet 2 weeks. I attended the chamber event at the 1810 house, which was pretty cool. That was it.
Okay.
We all met on Monday for an events permit, the food truck race. And I had a meeting with hazardous mitigation, EBA, deliberative session, think we all were on. Well, that was before that.
It's hard to remember.
Take another bow.
No, it was the last Wednesday special Board of Selectmen's meeting you were thinking of, right?
Yep.
Brad?
All I have.
Also had the hazard mitigation meeting, and then last night we had a planning board meeting. We had a nice, started early, we had a nice discussion with the Chamber of Commerce came in, and we sat down and talked with them on future, moving ahead with the zoning and stuff like that, and communication and things. And we had 3 public hearings after that to go over, so that was it for me.
Oh, it must have been a slow week for all of us. I had just the Friends of the Town Hall, and I went to the Chamber Executive Board meeting.
Hi, I went to various board meetings, and I went to there was something wrong with the moon yesterday. The Board of Economic Development Committee didn't have a quorum until 5 after the hour when the 5th person showed up. We had a very nice meeting, a presentation of scenic highways that are now in Brookfield and Wakefield, and they wanted to extend some things to Wolfeboro. Then we had the library trustees meeting that night, which didn't have a quorum either until about 10 minutes afterwards. But they soldiered through and ended early. Then today I decided to check out the food trucks, and I rate the painting on the food trucks as a 9 and the food as a 2, because I went and sampled some of them, but it was a very nice thing for the town of Wolfeboro to have, and there was a lot of enthusiasm, and the last minute thing, just a great thing for Wolfeboro PR and everyone else. And then also I spent some time watching snowmobiles, which I hadn't been paying attention to, and seeing happy campers using the trail and coming in off the docks.
Any questions from the press? Up you go.
On up there.
I congratulate Amy for her new position. I look forward to seeing her at that desk.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, so we now need a new welfare director. Is that right?
We will at some point, yes.
At some point?
Well,
is there anyone acting in that position?
So at this point, what we have determined to do is Amy is going to perform dual duties based on obviously some budgetary concerns that you have just heard, but we're intending at some point to fill that position.
Okay, all right.
It won't be immediately.
Okay.
okay, now it's time for public input. Is anybody in the audience want to give us public input? Quiet night tonight. With that, can I have a motion to go into non-public session? Do I have a second?
Second.
Paul?
Aye.
Dave?
Yes.
Yep, out of here.
Good night, everybody. See you tomorrow. Yeah, they did. Right, 23rd, 31, and
Generally have stayed out of that. I was hoping you might pick up the pieces of it. I just read it. This one I did.